Alright, welcome back. We got 3 fight cards tomorrow. We got Conor Benn versus Peter Dobson, Joshua Buatsi versus Dan Azeez, and UFC Fight Night Roman Dolidze versus Nasruddin Imavov. We'll start off with Conor Benn versus Peter Dobson. Neither fighter is ranked in the top 10 of the Ring magazine, but this is also Conor Benn's first time headlining in America. But that also has to do with Conor Benn's failed drug test situation from 2022. Dobson is relatively unknown. He seems kind of nervous, he's been twitching in interviews, keeps bouncing his legs up and down, but I'm not going to hold that against him just yet, because there's not that much footage on this guy, and the footage that's out there isn't really that great. He hasn't been on too many big cards, and he's undefeated, so possibly the nervousness can benefit him if it helps him to stay focused rather than hinder his ability to fight. Conor Benn is 22-0 with 14 knockouts, and Dobson is 16-0 with 9 knockouts. Conor Benn is also 6 years younger, but Dobson has a 2-inch height advantage. When looking at the footage Dobson does have, he does seem a little slow. Dobson can also be kind of flat-footed and stationary, but he does seem to time some shots well. Benn's last fight with Orozco did show me that he is actually improving his head movement and defense. Since that does seem to be one of his flaws, he was keeping his hands up a bit more instead of dropping them when throwing combinations. He also seemed to be closing the distance a bit better, because those were the 2 biggest problems I had with Conor Benn. I find Conor Benn's fights to be pretty fun to watch. Anytime he'd throw a combination, he'd just put his hands down really low, and he extends his legs pretty far that he could probably just get pushed over if someone had the right timing. But I think Peter Dobson is probably going to be a perfect fight for Conor Benn. This seems tailor-made for Conor Benn. Someone who is stationary, someone who isn't hard to find, someone who is slower than he is. Dobson does seem like a decent fighter, but Conor Benn feels like he has to prove something. And I don't know how well this nervousness for Dobson is going to either help or hinder him, but this is Dobson's first time fighting on a card of this size. If you're a Conor Benn fan, I feel like this should be a pretty entertaining fight. I think this should be a pretty clear win for Conor Benn. He should win by stoppage, but if he doesn't, I think he'd get a clear win on the scorecards. But airing around the same time will be Joshua Buatsi versus Dan Azeez. Joshua Buatsi is ranked number 5 by the Ring magazine, and Dan Azeez is ranked number 6. Joshua Buatsi's going in 17-0 with 13 knockouts, against Dan Azeez 20-0 and 13 knockouts. Dan Azeez is the one grabbing more people's attention as of late, but Joshua Buatsi's 4 years younger than Dan Azeez. He also has a 4-inch height advantage. I would say this is going to be the biggest fight for both fighters on the resume for now. Both used to be friends and sparring partners, they're well acquainted with each other, they know each other. And looking at Dan Azeez, he's been very active. He's had 5 fights in the last 2 years, and his last few he's been very dominant. He's not very speedy, and he can look a little stiff, but he can apply very good pressure. And against someone like Joshua Buatsi, who has not been very active, only having 2 fights in the last 2 years, one of them against Craig Richards, I would say his last 3 opponents were probably his best, and I would say Joshua Buatsi's a more complete fighter. He does have a faster jab, he has a good punch variety, and he does move pretty well, but I'm not sure where his headspace is at, especially with his fallout with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. I didn't have too much to say about Dan Azeez, and as much as he's older, he's got good momentum right now. I actually think this is a pretty close fight. It's a really good fight, but I'm leaning towards Buatsi to win. I think he knows how important this fight is, and I don't think he's going to try and coast through this fight. He should probably win by decision, possibly a late stoppage, but I'm going to take Joshua Buatsi to win. And moving on to the UFC Fight Night, Roman Dolidze versus Nasruddin Imavov. Dolidze's 12-2 with 10 stoppages, and Imavov is 12-4 with 9 stoppages. Imavov is 7 years younger, 1 inch taller, but Dolidze has a 1-inch reach advantage. Right off the bat, I'm just going to say I think Dolidze needs to take this fight to the ground. He's got decent striking, but I don't know if it compares to Imavov's. Where he does excel is his BJJ. Although his takedowns aren't the best, if he can mix in some striking and constantly go for the takedown, then his best chance of winning would probably be to submit Imavov. Imavov trains with Ciryl Gane and is trained by Coach Lopez. And the thing is, Imavov only seems to be improving. I know he can go 5 rounds, although he did seem to slow down a bit against Sean Strickland, did pick it up in the 5th, and he's been using his wrestling more, and it's definitely better than Ciryl Gane's. He's a better striker, he's a faster striker, but also like Ciryl Gane, as much as his striking is really fancy and it's fun to watch, he can leave his hands down and get caught. That's what he was doing against Sean Strickland, and Sean Strickland would just wait for the right opportunity to throw a shot. I think this could be a competitive fight unless Dolidze never even tries to take a takedown, because I think Dolidze needs to mix it up if he wants to win, or Imavov, if he wants, can try to keep this on the feet as long as possible and try and get a win from there. Should be a competitive fight, but I'm going to lean towards Imavov to get a unanimous decision, possible late stoppage. Those are my predictions for this Saturday. Let me know what you guys think. Who do you guys think is going to win against Conor Benn versus Peter Dobson, Buatsi versus Azeez, or Dolidze versus Imavov? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.